Members, I'd like to introduce our new food services director, food service coordinator. This is Heather Canfield.
Hi.
So
Hi.
I'd like if she'd just take a minute or two and introduce yourself.
Sure. Like you said, I'm Heather Canfield. I'm originally from Logan, Utah. I've been here in Pocatello for about 17 years. Been working for food service for about 7. So I'm pretty excited to be taking over for Tom. He left some big shoes to fill, but I think we'll get there. So,
Well, we welcome you.
thank you.
Glad to have you.
We're really excited to have Heather. Like you say, we really enjoyed her in the department, and she just was a good fit to lead the department. Great group of men and women. You know, in that food service, they do a great job in all the schools, and a very hard job. Of course, we need to increase their numbers. Just trying to find people there as well, but we. So anyway, appreciate Heather and that. Excited for her.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
Yeah, that's it. Thank you.
Okay, maybe we'll catch up with Kelly another day.
Okay.
Correct. Yeah, I'll maybe Kelly Dial is our new transportation coordinator, and she is back in. You know, she's helping out in transportation as we've had to kind of fill in some spots, and all of the employees back there are driving currently, and so she's helping dispatch, and so she's unable to tear herself away. And obviously, getting the kids home from school is priority as well. So.
Well, she's kind of a natural to fill that spot, isn't she? I mean,
Correct. Yeah.
I mean, she's
yeah,
pretty much done that for.
Correct. She has.
Worked as an assistant to Craig for
Correct.
quite a number of years.
Yeah,
Quite a
I
number
think
of years.
she's 30 years in the department, if
Right.
I remember correctly.
Yeah.
Right around there.
Cool.
Okay.
Well, we're excited. Okay. Next, Ms. Kathy Lozmack will review the Head Start program.
Right. Good afternoon,
Good afternoon.
Mr. Chairman, fellow trustees, Dr. Hall, Ms. Johnson. So you would have received what's called lovingly the Program Information Report, or PIR. We don't think so kindly while we're trying to pull it together, because if you're off by one number, it flags you.
Oh.
But this report basically is primarily a statistical report to kind of show some of the areas, what kind of data we've collected over the year. It is then shared with our elected officials at the national level, and it is used to help them as every year they look to reapproving and funding the Head Start programs. So I know, just looking at the report from this past year, there could be some questions, so I'm here to answer questions, but we kind of look at it from one year to the next. Though these past 2 years, the data is a bit skewed because we have been under COVID protocols, so it's not what you would normally see. The areas just kind of wanted to highlight from this past year, we were seeing more families who had incomes over the 100% federal poverty guideline level, and that was due to programs being encouraged to be at full enrollment. So once you have served all applicants that were at the 100%, you could look at families up to 130% as long as you don't go over 35% of your total enrollment. So that was what happened this past year. We saw a little bit of a larger Hispanic population, so whether that was also contributing to the different income levels of the families we were serving, but not a huge increase. Others were kind of up and down, but things we saw also for families is more families who were actually employed or going to school. So that percentage had also increased. Things that we saw that really shot up was under family assistance, so looking at emergency crisis needs, huge increase there, which one would expect during those times. and housing. Many of our families were struggling trying to find housing that they could afford. The third highest increase in services was looking at mental health. So no real surprises from what we were seeing in the data. Father engagement was up, and I don't think it was necessarily because we had more fathers who were looking to be involved. I'd like to think so, but I think it's just because we put a higher emphasis on reaching out, making sure we're getting fathers engaged. So we'll see what this next year's data shows. The one area, or the couple of areas that really stood out, of course, were either child and staff turnover, much, much higher than we typically would see in years. And a large part of that, as we know, was due to the new regulations coming out. So it really hit our program hard. And then the last one was disability services. So we are charged to have at least 10% of our enrollment slots designed for children with disabilities, and we have never had a problem meeting that requirement, but this past year, our children with disabilities rate was like over 20%. So huge number of children that we recognize needing to be referred and then diagnosed, and pretty much of the 45 children, or 46 children that actually then went to be evaluated for an IEP, 45 of them ended up qualifying.
Wow.
Huge, huge increase compared to we're required to have at least 19 kids. So the types of disabilities, though, still were pretty typical. Most are in the speech. Others would be in what they call developmentally delayed. So those were the highlights of what we were seeing this past year compared to a previous year. And if you have any specific questions over any of the statistics that you read, I'd be happy to address them.
So most of it was speech, you said?
We usually typically have the majority of students needing speech services. And what we found, what the data was saying, is rather than families identifying that there might have been a need earlier on in the child's life, it wasn't diagnosed until they entered preschool. So some of these kids might have had services earlier, which would have, for some, a couple of years in infant and toddler program may have made it where they wouldn't be eligible for speech services later on. But I think because of the delay of seeking out services, we're seeing higher numbers.
You suppose COVID had something to do with that, too?
I definitely do. I mean, you know, you had families who were, for a while, locked down at home,
Right.
not getting out. Trying to get out and get services was really, really difficult because they didn't want people coming in. It's really, really hard to do it, you know, virtually. So I really think it had an impact.
And do you think that also the masks with the verbal, you know, a lot of, I guess, pediatric associations has said things like that?
You know, there are some statistics and research that I have seen that does play into it, but you also see some that says not quite as much as some people are saying, but it definitely can. Yep.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Anything else? Thank you, we
All
appreciate
right.
your report.
Thank you.
Okay. And next, we have the Pocatello Community Charter School Annual Report presented by Dean Mendive and Ali Flores. Welcome.
Thank you. Hello, Ward. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. For those that don't know me, my name is Ollie Flores, and this is my 16th year as the business manager of Pocatello Community Charter School. So I am going to give you a fairly brief update of our finances for the year. So our fiscal year 2022 general fund ending balance was $1,225,000. That was an increase of $150,814 from fiscal year 21. One thing I always note is of that 1.225 million, 395,000 is kept in a separate savings account that our board has reserved for future expenses. So the way our board looks at it, that our ending balance would be more like 830,000. So it was a great year. some great things that happened last year. We utilized ESSER funds again for learning loss to pay for salaries and supplies for our summer school program. And we're hoping we can do that next year as well, because it's a pretty great program that we run. We serviced 41 students from grades K to 8. Also, I always like to note, last year, our food service took a hit and we had a $0 ending balance, which we had worked so hard to have a positive balance. This year, we were able to get back to serving our kids hot lunches rather than a sack lunch. And so our account, our child nutrition account, had a balance of $5,100. So that was good for us. We also were able to purchase 3 adventure vans for our school. We do a lot of adventure. We utilize them frequently during the summer school program. We also basically got rid of our computer lab, did a library remodel, and then added 2 additional office spaces. And for the current year, we still have ESSER funds available. We were able to give our salary all a cost of living of 5% increase. And we also were able to better fund our health insurance. We did not go with the governor's plan. However, our employees pay what someone else would pay on the governor's plan. So we're covering quite a bit of the dependents' health insurance cost. We have a new meal management system, which has been interesting to implement, but it is now working out really well. We also got a new emergency contact system. It's called the E3. It's an app that is able to send out a text for drills for if there was a true emergency, then the police would get the notification as well. So it's a pretty good system that we got. We are currently building an outdoor classroom, and we are also revamping our playground and adding some new playground equipment. The concerns that I see for the current year are we still have a sub shortage, so it's hard for us to find substitute teachers. And then we've just recently discovered that we have some increased costs to construction that we were currently in the middle of doing, just due to things like the price of concrete and things like that. So that is all I have for the finance piece, if anyone has any questions.
I don't have any questions. We appreciate your report.
Yeah, and then I would say, last year, we kept our professional goals pretty simple. Our one goal was about maintaining and improving the culture and climate of the school. So we were pretty explicit about that. We did regular culture building things with, especially with the instructional staff, and then a few other things with the entire staff. And I feel like that was pretty successful. And then the other goal was kind of simple, but it was I think important as well, in improving the information that we give to parents regarding our platform PowerSchool, and so making that information more relevant and timely. So just improving our teachers' practices, using that to inform parents. So I think that was pretty successful. Going into this year, it's feeling a little bit more like a back to normal year. So really happy about that. Our kids have already been camping. Most our younger students have already been camping this year. The older students will go later. That's a big part of our school. The adventure program, the camping is one third of our adventure program. We also every student crosses snow and every student rock climbs every year. And then there's some other smaller parts. And so that feels really good. It also feels good that we have a real meaty professional goal this year of improving in mathematics. Mathematics has been I don't know if necessarily a weakness necessarily, but our ELA has always been really strong at PCCS, and our and math has been kind of par-ish. And so we are contracted with Dr. Corey Bennett at ISU. He teaches the math practices classes at ISU, and he's brilliant, really. And so we are contracting with him. He's providing professional development with our teachers this year, and we even actually plan on it being a multi-year relationship with him. Kind of modeling what Jonathan Brentford did at Answer Charter School, which started the math movement in Idaho several years ago, is kind of what we're aiming at. And the other thing that we're working on this year is, COVID made a lot of the things that made PCCS great really challenging, right? We are a cooperative learning school, project-based, and all things COVID really made those things working together challenging, and our community meetings went away, and some of those things. And so we also have a back to basics goal for this year, where we're really getting back to a lot of those practices that really build not just the culture of our staff, but also with the students, and that engagement with our students with the learning. So that is our other goal for this year.
Cool, sounds good. Any questions? No. Comments? Okay, we appreciate your report.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much.
You bet. You have a good day.
You too.
Okay, okay, next, Janelle Harris will represent the new positions, Habitat Skill Interventionist proposal. She's not here.
You know what, I'm gonna cover that. I don't
Okay.
think my microphone's on. So, if you'll excuse Mrs. Harris, she had an IEP that, maybe she needed to, not maybe, she just needed to attend that. And so I told her I would pick up this
Okay.
piece.
Fine.
As you can see in the, agenda there is her memo, and you've probably already read through this. But essentially, this would create another position on our classified salary schedule, this rehabilitative skill interventionist. And is this working?
Nope.
No.
Yeah, I'm just kidding. Okay. It's like lip syncing. So we have really struggled this year, primarily in our secondary schools, middle school and high school, to find those folks to assist in our ERR and DLP classrooms. And these are children that have maybe a deficiency in learning, some developmental delays. They might have some behaviors, and so we have primarily a pull-out program for these two areas. And again, it's just been difficult to find paraprofessionals to work in those settings, because they also require some care for those students, some physical care. And with that in mind, I commend Mrs. Harris for looking at an opportunity here that we could look at Medicaid reimbursement for these positions. And as she researched this, she found out that one, they would have to be highly qualified, and the other, that they receive specialized training. And Mrs. Harris can provide that additional training that they would need to fulfill the requirements to for the behavior components of those children that we might be able to receive reimbursement through Medicaid services. And so we feel very confident that adding this position will give some of the folks in the program some incentive to stay, and also to recruit some new ones for those two areas of need. And so we'll bring that to you for action next week. You can, again, look through the memo second, third time, and then ask any questions you have of Mrs. Harris or me today even, next week. But I see it as a real need and an opportunity as well.
Would it be kind of more of an, kind of a manager in a, I don't know. I can't think of the word.
So we have, maybe this might help, but we have instructional paraprofessionals, And then we have personal care paraprofessionals, and this would just be a step above that, because they would receive that specialized training for behaviors in addition to the personal care needs that we provide as well.
Oh, nice.
Yep.
That's really, really, really nice.
Thank you. Okay, next we will discuss school safety and security follow-up.
Okay, I think that, I don't know, Courtney and Tanya wanted to come on up as well. But this is just an opportunity for the board to share your thoughts maybe with one another as a follow-up to the meeting that we had last month with our chiefs here, both of City of Chubbuck and Pocatello, and then Sheriff Manu. And so you had a lot of information kind of thrown at you over about an hour and 15 or 20 minutes. And probably some time to think about that and tell us what you're thinking, if you like the direction we're going, if you would like us to look into other things. I know too, you've probably looked at the resolutions. There's, I think, the second one in regards to asking the state for some special funding for school safety and security. And that might help either for SROs or security people. But there was just a lot going on last month, and we had the rest of our agenda to look at and review. So I don't know if you'd like to give us any thoughts, insight, have questions for our team that we can answer for you today.
Okay, refresh our memory, what is our plan to go forward?
So I'm gonna, Tanya's got it right there, I think.
Basically, we are increasing another SRO. By January, we'll have another one, and we're going to place all of the SROs at a middle school and get them certified in DARE, and they'll go down to the feeder elementaries to teach DARE instead of having a DARE officer for the whole
Oh,
district.
cool.
And that way, they can, as they're going down to teach DARE at the elementary level, establish relationships and
Yeah.
be on campus more. But I just actually had a meeting with Chief Shy, and we're gonna do a town hall in a couple weeks, but he also informed me within 2 weeks, he'll know if they're gonna add 2 more SROs
Oh,
by
really?
January if they get this grant, which will be, lack of a better word, subbing. So when we get, because a lot of our SROs have double hats,
Mhm.
they get pulled out quite a bit, and so they would fill in and be present on more elementary campuses.
Cool.
So we're really hoping that by January we have 3 more, for
There's
sure one.
PD and other opportunities for training. I think we had a couple of those written in.
Oh, yeah, I wanted
Following
to know
up on
about that,
Craig.
if the police departments,
They,
Chubbuck, Pocatello, and would kind of help coordinate with training.
they have with their schools, so if an SRO is tied to a school or 2 schools, they have started those trainings. They're trying to fit the needs of the schools we've had a lot of trainings in September, so they're trying to fit the needs of the schools, but they've already started those CRACE trainings at the school level. They haven't finished with all the schools quite yet. Is that what you're asking about?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think what was important too that we heard from them is their response time. And I know that that was a concern, primarily from that traumatic event in May. And so they assured us that they were, 2 to 3 minutes out from any of our schools, which we're very fortunate that we have that cooperation. And then they also assured you that there's no waiting.
Yeah.
The expectation is that their officers enter immediately.
Well,
I don't think that any of us worried about that.
Okay.
We wouldn't have that happen here.
We
Yeah.
That plan
implemented it.
seemed pretty good. I was wholeheartedly in favor of that plan that they came up with.
And we implemented our first drill with the 21 seconds and got great feedback. The teachers filled in the Google Doc and dialogues are happening in the school, so that was really successful as well.
Will you remind them, 21-14-7, is that?
Yeah, 21 seconds, so basically we had on our script. and I think
21,
that-
17, 12, so,
Oh.
right?
Is it, there's another, okay.
Mhm.
So 21 seconds.
We're doing
is the-
3.
The one in September, and then the 17 is optional, so if we feel like that 21 didn't work out, we had a lot, and we actually had a school do that. They're gonna plan an extra one, but in January is the 12 seconds, and by April, we'll have it down to 7 seconds. So we have the optional one, the 17-second one here, if they wanna do it. Great feedback was, as we were kind of reading some of the teachers' notes, was
Well, I think most of our teachers have a great sense of responsibility for those kids in a situation like that.
I wasn't at the key communicators meeting. Were there any suggestions from the community that came out of that safety discussion? I noticed that was on the agenda.
No, I mean, they shared some of the same concerns that you have, you know, wanting SROs in all of our buildings, talking through kind of the security issue, you know, and we basically shared the same information that we shared with you and just talked about, you know, the things that we're doing really well, things that we know we can do to kind of add extra layers, such as the PD, this security enhancements with the cameras that we're doing right now. And so they didn't really come back with any additional suggestions, but they appreciated knowing and having that reaffirmed, all the things that we do already have in place that are working really well.
I think that their big concern too was, you know, are we working together as a big team? Because nobody really knows behind the scenes, and we talked about how we have our safety committee meeting once a month as well, and everybody comes to the table with the police department, Chubbuck, and so forth, so we really do work really well as a team.
Right, and not everybody's aware that they are asked to like do their reporting in the parking lot of an elementary school or nearby, and so as we started talking about that, the lights of recognition went on in several members, like, I've seen them do that, you're right, I've seen them parked in the elementary schools, and so making that connection was a good thing, I think, also.
I thought they did such a good job with that. Just to have their presence there when they're in the area, I just thought that was so well done.
Right, and you saw, I mean, we did a board visit last week at Syringa, and Officer Johnson was giving him his presentation in one of the classes, and just the connection that they make, so we can see like real promise for having those move up into the feeder schools and the relationships that are being built through that program and those efforts.
And it was pretty observant, and Officer, you know, Johnson noticed that when he was at a feeder school and he was subbing over to Hawthorne, that the kids were like, hey, you know, and so that connection already is huge for them to be able to walk up to them, especially if there's something going on, they're very comfortable.
Right, and we had lunch with Officer Viana today, Tanya and I did, and just even him talking about the extra links they go to, he coaches for Pokey, and said the relationships that he cultivates and strengthens through that when the kids see him out of uniform, so we are really blessed to have these, this relationship.
And we work with them with the parent forum that he established, and so once or twice a year, he actually puts on an event, that's on, well, health wellness or safety and so forth, where him and the expertise come to the table and do kind of a forum. It's kind of cool.
Yeah, parent training and that kind of stuff.
They typically do it at
Oh, outer limits.
Outer limits, so the kids will have a place to play while they're talking to the parents, so then the parents really have to come.
Then they all have to hire daycare.
Right. Do you have any questions, or?
I'm just wondering if there's been any more discussion about volunteer basis, to have somebody on a volunteer basis, and even if they had non-lethal means of protection, just to have somebody there that would be willing to offer a level of protection, help with the drills, be trained by the Pocatello Police Department in some measure to be able to help keep the kids safe, watching the hallways.
I think their
Watching.
primary focus is to get us more SROs first, and
Uh-huh.
then they were going to go
That
to
would
the
be
next
great.
level, to see how this unfolds, and then go to the next level, to
Mhm.
more and what that looks like.
Mhm.
So I think they really wanted to see how this would unfold with
Mhm.
that additional 3, which is substantial to me.
Because I know some of the schools have the dads volunteer. They're not armed, they're just there to offer help and protection, I guess.
And I don't think they're ready or at a point that they want to train them. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think that's what we heard Chief Shop
That's
say.
what I thought.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
Becomes a responsibility.
Mhm.
But I don't think that door is closed. I think
We can just
their
Yeah,
focus
we
right now
can
is to get more.
focus on the SROs and then maybe see where that leads us.
Yeah.
That sounds good.
Yep, and then the camera system as well. We're doing all of those things in the PD, so we're kind of watching and reacting instead of overloading and not being able to do anything really good.
Mhm.
Kind of layer
Just
this.
department have access to camera systems, or is it really just?
Yes.
Oh, good, that's great.
And some of, with the road shows, we've identified some issues with some of, some of the doors and the locks. We heard that at Syringa. So that opened up a flood of work orders into our maintenance department that now they're dealing with. And so it's gonna take some time, but I think that was a really valuable exercise to go in there, hear the concerns of our staff members, where did they feel a little bit discomfort, and see how we could then take that back to the safety committee or take that to maintenance through a work order and try to address some of those issues.
Any other questions?
Looks like we're on the way though.
Yeah, we appreciate,
Yeah,
good.
really good direction.
appreciate your efforts in that.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, next we'll review the capital improvement program presented by Jonathan Balls.
Thank you for the manual. It was very helpful.
Oh, good. Yeah, and we'll talk about that. Again, we had a great summer. We had some, and so if everybody can see that, maybe? Yeah, go ahead.
And then it's also on your computer.
It is on the computer as well. So again, thank all of our maintenance and facilities, groundskeepers. I mean, we have permanent maintenance and maintenance staff, but we hire a lot of everyone from bus drivers to food service workers, and everybody that just pitches in to help paint and to move. There's a lot of full-time moving crew in and out for all these different projects. So what I've highlighted is just some of the kind of before and after pictures that you can kind of scroll through. Again, you can read on there. We completed the downstairs Alameda bathroom last year, and so now we're doing the upstairs. And so there's some, let's make sure I can get my, again, it's a full remodel where we tear down the walls and basically replace all the plumbing there. I don't know why
The
my,
after
Maybe-
picture,
Yeah, forward.
use that arrow, you think?
the
But the-
after, oh, sorry.
Please finish, go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say, the after picture looks like they're more private. The stalls have
Correct.
a longer wall, right? A bigger wall? Are they more private than the ones before?
I believe they're possibly they're a little bit taller, but they're
I mean, just going like lower between.
correct.
between.
Yeah. It could be the angle of the camera, but yes, I mean, we tried to obviously have privacy there. Due to some, again, staffing and some challenges there, so they did start school without this bathroom being done. You had to use the basement. However, just got an update today that the plumbing, all the fixtures will be installed this week, and then we'll get the panel guy, back in there and get that finished by next week. So that'll be good to have that finished. Maybe. The next one is some bleachers. We first did Irving. They were in the most dire shape and most used by our public. So again, this is the bleachers removed. The bleachers are there in the boxes there getting installed. So during there, again, during getting those installed, the framework there. And this is actually through a security camera. So you can kind of see on the left-hand side, it's an alternating gray and maroon color. And then using the seat colors, the IMS is in that. When they're pushed up, you can read that. So Hawthorne will actually be done this week, and then we'll schedule Alameda and Franklin later in the year. Obviously trying to miss basketball and all those things.
It's a real improvement over the.
Correct,
last year.
yes, we've heard some great feedback, just really brightens and sharpens
Yeah.
up those.
Mr. Johnson was really excited about him. We were able to visit with him.
Oh, yes,
He
that's
was really
Johnson
excited
over there.
about having
Right.
bleachers.
And this is ESSER money, right? All
That is
three?
correct. So
That's
yes,
what I
this
thought.
is all funds.
That's
These are
great.
basically just all the different projects that we did through the summer, through all sorts of different funding sources, correct? Okay. The one we did back here, we had a leak in one of our 30-year-old tanks. So I didn't get a very good pre-picture of the old ones, but here are the new tanks that are going in. One for diesel and one for unleaded. Just in the shop there. Again, almost filled up with the sand, but then all of the wiring and tubes there. Sorry. There we go. And there's the finished product. I believe, yes, the pole, the light pole is there as well. And so it looks really good and ready for the next 30 years there. So. One of our big projects that is still ongoing is our, at Hawthorne Middle School, is our Pocatello High School concession stand. There you can see the backside of Hallowell Park, and then our track and turf field, which we'll cover there shortly, is to the left.
You can see the bleachers there.
Yep, you can see the bleachers there that's facing the football field. Again, foundation there, just some different pictures that our coordinator's taken. Again, the flat work there, the cement, plumbing's, the underground plumbing started there. Again, started the masonry. Again, this is this building will last for a very long time. It's the CMU block. They're going up in different colors. Kind of it's supposed to be red, but it's kind of it's a darker red. Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yep. I'm good. There we go. Again, you'll see the concession stand in the front there, team room, and the restrooms are right there on the side. So when this gets done, it'll be really good.
I took a walk through there the other day. It's that my grandson had to pick him up for practice, and he was practicing there.
Uh-huh.
And so I was sitting there bored, and anyway, I walked down there and walked through it, and there's a lot of the conduits running there, and wires are being pulled.
Correct. Yes. So an update there. I mean, they're still going through there. They're doing the wiring, the electrical, and the plumbing. They're finishing that.
And there's enough for 2 team rooms for.
2 team rooms on the side.
And the restroom on each side.
Yeah, and then the restrooms kind of in the middle there. Yep, right behind the concession stand.
Yeah, I think it'd be nice.
Yes, that would be really nice. Okay, so this is now kind of the opposite of that location. Again, that they're tearing up the grass there for our PHS turf there at Lookout Field. Okay. This black, you'll see the track to the right. That black is basically just laid down like pavement. I call it's a black, almost Rice Krispie treat consistency, just that soft there. And that's kind of that's the cush drain. That's the extra layer of protection and safety that we added to this project. And, that's the longevity part that'll last the longest of that turf field. Again, they call it the carpet. The turf is literally just carpet as it's rolled out in different sections, and every line is actually sewn in, and every different color. If you there we go. So there's the end zone. You can kind of see how they do that. It is fascinating, and how they did that. Obviously, it doesn't have the pellets in there, but there's a nice. An overview of that Lookout Field. We appreciate Lookout Credit Union. Again, this was donated dollars there that provided this.
And all those numbers and letters were cut out and sewn in.
Were cut out and sewn in. Correct.
And they're giving the money over how many years? I can't remember what it was.
So they gave 700 up front, and then years 7, 8, and 9, they'll give 100,000 each of those. And typically, so that'll be for any maintenance, but I anticipate that'll just kind of be seed money for any replacement, as this will last, we're hoping at least, 12, 13 years, but we'll have to kind of look and see. Okay, so the other one is, another big project was replacing the modulars that burnt down. It was almost 3 years ago now. These were from federal dollars, and we had to build a foundation. These were modular units, but we had to have a foundation. So that's what took a lot of the time and expense there. So again, you can kind of look and see that they're building that foundation there.
So what federal dollars?
So this is Head Start dollars.
Start,
Head Start, yeah. Again, so the Lincoln Early Intervention is behind us there, so this is going out into that field. But again, more of the foundation. It was a big day when that crane came. The modulars, so there's 4 classrooms, so each modular came in 4 different sections. You can see that's 2 halves of the 2 classrooms there that you can see on the left and right of that crane, all in one big unit there. There we go. And so, and then there was, rather than a deck, it was a cement that was put in between, and then a canopy for protection. Again, the Lincoln Elementary is behind us, so you'd walk out into this section. And then lastly, again, for another access, and again, the school is behind that at the top. So at the top, you come it's straight at ground level. But because of the slope of the ground, we had to have this ramp, but a nice looking and safe ramp off the backside as an alternate access out of that.
Well, it's been a long time coming, hasn't it?
It has. That was a good one.
It seemed like that's taken forever.
Yep, it's been almost 3 years, yeah. Okay, playground, and so this is, again, kind of off the playground is going in on that top left there. Really excited, had a lot of great feedback. There's the finished product. Again, this is also ESSER dollars. Wilcox was the first, and they're continuing to go this fall, kind of getting ready there. And that included everything from that fall material to the borders as well. So. Now, just some other things that are big that we do every year. I believe this is Lewis and Clark, maybe? New roof system, EPDM membrane there. So we do several roofs, we evaluate those. HVAC, this is at Pocatello High School. This is every unit got replaced. I believe almost 78 units got replaced in that building. So I think there's one more. Oh yeah, and carpet. So we have a lot of buildings that got carpet, and that was, that takes as you know, takes a big effort there to redo carpeting. I believe that might be the last one. Oh, some concrete. These were some steps that were kind of crumbling. I didn't have a before picture, but they were crumbling, and so we do that internally, that we, shore that up, and obviously it's painted gray to make the front of that building look much nicer. So there's a lot of different, maybe not as big as some of these big projects, but again, a lot of maintenance that help the upkeep of our buildings. Okay, and there we go. Yes, thank you. Again, to all of our maintenance, food service, everyone, we're thankful for the taxpayers, that allow us donations to be able to do this. Before I finish that sip, again, I will come to you next, even next Tuesday, to ask if we can start for next year. This is almost a full year project, the whole process. And I think some of you will be on our SIP committee, and we'll start in October meeting and start the process for next year. So next board meeting, I'll ask for approval to be able to start that process again. So.
Perfect. Thank you. Okay, any questions or comments? Okay. Okay, and next, the ESSER plan discussion will be provided by Jonathan Balls, Carl Smart, and Dr. Howell.
You come back up? I can come to sit.
We can do that. Do you? I don't have that pulled up. Does everybody have? Everybody have that? Okay. So as Carl's coming up, again, this is our ESSER federal dollars. And we estimate that as of first part of October, there's a little over $16 million left. You'll see 2 fiscal years because that's all we have to spend that. We've tried, well, the whole country has tried to push that back because of supply issues and getting supplies to do that, but they will not allow the spending to, as long as it's obligated, we maybe have 3 months more. But for our purposes, I think if we just, spend it by the end of next year. So this is a fluid document.
So end of next year, September of '24?
September of '24, yes.
Yeah.
Sorry,
Okay.
did I say that wrong?
Nope.
Well, you said next year. So I
Okay.
didn't know when this-
Okay, yes, thank you. Yeah, end of next school year, yes. Technically September
2
of
years,
'24.
okay.
2 years, correct. And this is again, a fluid document, and so it can be modified, by yourselves. And again, as a reminder, this was set out as a survey, kind of what the priorities should be, and those are listed in the 8 different categories there. Again, I will mention that the learning loss was set by the federal government, that 20% of our ESSER funds, ESSER 3, had to be spent on learning loss. And we're on track to spend that in these activities that are highlighted in the beige. And so if we follow through with some of these activities to help learning loss, we will meet that.
On the curriculum, are we also still planning on a new, a literacy or ELO, not ELO, ELA curriculum? We're still planning on K through 5, and so what's the time frame for that?
Good question.
They will, we talked a little bit about instructional directors this morning. So typically, those will start picking up in November through December, and different meetings. In fact, we were talking about how we'll proceed with that because of the change in the statute or the law this last year.
Because they're
And it
all
has to be-
open meetings, right?
Yeah, so I think what we'll start with is an advisory committee, much like we do with our capital improvements and outdoor facilities, kind of precedes that. We'll get some, information collection from our teachers as to what they're looking for on a more broad scale. And then we'll kind of narrow that down, and then we'll bring the curriculum committee together, which will be made up of parents, administrators, and so forth. Again, the statute outlines that specifically. And then they'll look at, 2 or 3 options, and then that committee will choose one or a recommendation that would come to the board. Yep, so I would say we're looking at probably January, February adoption. Typically, we've tried to, even with all of our bids, be a little bit earlier this last few years, because we know that supply and demand is pretty difficult. So, yeah, I think that'll pick up real soon. In fact, Amy always on it. Yep.
Okay. We wanted to highlight, just actually, it turned out to be that very first one. We wanted to kind of lay some groundwork, as next Tuesday it'll be an agenda item with specific action to be able to use some of this ESSER dollars for some staff retention stipends. Carl, do you want to kind of lay that out? Sorry.
And I wish I remember the House bill this relates to, but it seems like it's 743, something like that.
Sounds great.
Whatever, yeah.
Right on.
743, we'll go with it, and if we need to make a correction, we will. But House Bill 7, whatever it was from a year ago, or last legislative session, gave districts a lump sum of money to pay towards teachers. I don't know what to call it. Bonuses is not the word I'm looking for. Stipends or premium payment. Is that what they called it? And it ended up, doing all the calculations, it ended up being about $1,555 per FTE. Because it was based upon last year's staffing,
Right?
and it moves into this year's staff.
Oh.
Sorry, I interrupted.
Oh, no, it's, there's one that expired. Are you talking about the one that, the emergency one that they did and that expired, like the first year of COVID, and then they did more ESSER? The staff one? There was a staff retention one that,
There
They did,
could, there
and it
there
expired.
have been a series, at least 2 that I can recall. This is a one that came, from what I understand, out of state funds. It had nothing to do with ESSER. So, but they did send us, and in fact, it's sitting in the grant portal as we speak. We're just ready to be requested to be paid. What we're gonna end up doing is paying it and then requesting a reimbursement from the state. So, in our conversations over the last, couple months as this is coming, how we're gonna pay this and do this, and Brenda's back here, and I'm gonna give her kudos. It's not gonna sound like a kudo, but it really is. You know, how often if the state's sending money to do this for teachers, how often are we going to have to come up with local funds to make a match for those who are not getting it? Does that make sense? Because we cannot just give money forever and ever and ever. And that's Brenda's thoughts is, when are we going to be able to not do this? And, but we always, Brenda, I'm sorry, throw you under the bus like that.
Somebody has to be the bad guy.
No, it's not really a bad thing. It's a valid argument. But on the flip side as well, we realized when they did pay for performance years and years ago under Tom Luna, that was one of the most divisive things that the state could have done. Just give a group pay for performance bonuses based upon some performance criteria, and others were left out. And we know that we have staff that work hard, just like our teachers, to help kids perform at their best. And so, taking into consideration what Brenda says, how often do we do this? We came to the conclusion that we have the funds to do this. Can we do it one more time? So this $880,000 item in here is paying our classified staff, our principals who were not included in the state payment, a payment very much like we did with the CARES money last year and the year before that. Same sort of scenarios.
And it's all out of the ESSER?
It's all out of the ESSER. On top of that, this only includes our employees who are not participant or are not employed in the Head Start program. In fact, I just talked to Kathy earlier today. She has funds available to help pay for her staff in a very similar fashion. So,
And everybody knows that this expires when the money expires. But this is.
well, that's the hard conversation we're gonna have to have, and that's where Brenda was
Well,
going.
we're getting the money
When are we gonna have
right
this hard conversation that we're not gonna be able to do this? So that's where Brenda was going with this conversation as we had this discussion. So, that is in there, and we will bring that next week. What are you laughing about over there, Renee? For approval to make this happen, and I think Head Start is gonna try to do the same thing. She has some stipends she wants to pay in addition to that, and so, once we get that approval, then we will begin preparing this payment for our November payroll, probably, or November 20th.
We talking about the break-in, 1555?
Well, right now, because we don't have, I did this calculation, 6 weeks ago maybe. It was about $1,557 for the state money coming in. We would try to match that with our principals and our administrative staff. It might fluctuate a little bit just based upon our current staffing. It might be $5 or $6. I mean, you add one FTE, it only affects it. We calculate that, what, $1.50 or $2, something like that? And so, and for the classified staff, just like we did in prior payments like this, we'll break them down by their daily hours. And if they work a certain number of hours, they'll get a third share or a quarter share, or a third share, half a share, 3/4 share, or full share if they work 6 hours or more per day.
Have the bonus.
Yeah, and we might have to do some adjustments, just like we have in the past, based upon, we might have a second payment we'll do in maybe April. Is that when we did it before, based upon 100 work days?
I can't remember if it was March or April.
But what we don't want to do is give somebody $1,000 is what
That's
we're
the big-
looking at, the classified folks, $1,000 and have them walk away next week. We want to get we want them to share in the responsibility of making this happen with
So is
our
it
children.
tied to an agreement?
What's that?
So is it tied to an agreement that they will stay, or?
Oh, no,
just
we'll just say,
encouraged?
just like in years past, we'll say, if you started after such and such a date, we will make sure you're paid something at such and such a date in the future if you work those 100 days.
Oh, I see, they're paid at the end.
But if you started last year and continued working and started this year and continued working to this point, we will do that in November, just like we do with the teachers. That make sense? But it's $1,000. And so it could range anywhere from $330 up to $1,000, based upon how many days or hours a day they work. So, anything else there, Doug, that is?
I think you both covered it well, unless you have some questions. Again, it just brings equity to all of our staff a little bit better because of they mentioned this differentiated pay. It's a team effort. And so, the state sent the reimbursement money for teachers, but it was specifically for teachers. And it's like, it takes all of us to do what we do. And so we want to recognize everyone's contribution.
That's a good idea.
We do have the money here, one more year. If the state extends that another year, I don't know, based on the budget where we'll be. But at least for, we've done this extra duty stipend, this would be a third year. It's a little less, well, significantly less, maybe not significant, but it's less than what we have for administrative, but it's on par with what we did last time. Again, we went back and forth on this in cabinet about 4 or 5 times, and this is kind of the money where it landed and the recommendation that we bring to you.
Okay. And we'll vote on that next week.
Yeah. And then Jonathan, if you'll just.
Yep, I'll run, or unless if there's any questions, again, I'll just hit kind of the higher things, or at least the bigger numbers there. Again, if you have any questions, please let me know. Again, we're looking at some high school auditoriums, some sound and light. If we needed to have some big meetings, we can hear and see everybody. Security cameras, wiring and devices, upgrades there.
And we talked about that earlier with our safety and security.
Yep.
So it's about $1 million over the 2 years. And, yeah.
Correct.
So I think that'll get us, we have to wire for Cat 6,
Correct.
a little bit better cameras.
Yep. Yes, that is correct.
I think that'll get us well on our way.
Absolutely. And then if there's anything extra, then of course, our plant facility could fill in there, but we'll make sure our needs are met there. Again, playground equipment, as I mentioned, we're ongoing. Obviously, we haven't paid. We've paid some, but not all of it as it's still being installed and so forth. Same thing with the indoor activity seating and those middle school bleachers. Again, we haven't paid for the 3 that are still have not been completed yet. The bigger one I wanted to point out to you, again, as the board had signed that letter of intent to purchase that Allstate building for our CTE Center, our Port Neuf Valley Professional Technical Building. Again, we put $6 million of that to help, purchase that, as well as some money there to, if there's any refiguration in that building to kind of help us, get the spaces that we need there. So of course, that's a big one there. I wanted to draw your attention to that. Any questions or concerns?
Now, the physical distancing at graduation, is that still, that's projected for this coming May?
That helps
correct.
offset the cost of the arena.
Yep.
Oh, so it's really not for physical distancing, it's really just because we want that big venue?
Yeah.
Oh,
Correct.
just- well, I mean, it is for physical distancing.
Yeah, that's how we,
Okay,
Yeah.
that's how we classify
that's how
it.
we justified it.
Uh-huh.
Okay, there we go, okay.
Yep.
I follow.
Smiling.
Yep. Even though I'll probably be there anyway, that's perfect.
Sure, correct.
Great use of the money.
Yep. Again, if you have any other questions, again, this is a fluid document, you know, as we use that, so if there's anything, please let us know.
Okay. Anything else?
Are we still here?
You, Jonathan, me,
Yeah.
supplemental levy.
Oh,
Do they have that attachment?
Yep.
Okay.
Well, let's start out by saying our request to the county has been filed and is done. So we had that conversation from 9.25 million down to 7.25 million for this year. So now we need to begin that conversation about where do we go with our supplemental levy that we have to have put before our voters in March of 2023. So 6 months from now, basically. So we've had this conversation. Do we continue with the same amount that we certified with the county this year? Is it something different? And what can we afford as a district? Now, Jonathan and I had this conversation this morning, and we probably need to do some homework as we prepare for this. We know, based upon this potential purchase, this very large purchase, we are going to take some money from some other sources to help pay for that. Based on that, plus our reduction in the, say, a supplemental levy of $2 million this year, $2 million the following year, where does that put us in a way of balance, say, in our general fund, that are we comfortable with that new balance where it might be? Did that make any sense? So that piece of the puzzle we will have to work on over the next several weeks.
So that won't be an action item next?
No, this is gonna be, this could be continued conversation probably up through the month of December.
Oh, okay.
Because as the first part of January, we have to present a ballot question to the Bannock County. And that Bannock County ballot question will include how much will the supplemental levy be? In addition, because of some new requirements, what are we gonna utilize those supplemental levy dollars for? And so, you know, some of these bigger items that we kind of came across and fell into our lap, how is that going to affect maybe our decision-making in December as we prepare to have this ballot question sent to the county? And so, like I said, Jonathan and I had this conversation this morning. We haven't had a chance to talk about it with Doug yet, but it has to be a conversation we have. When we start taking money out of our general fund balances, at what point do we feel comfortable or not comfortable about going? How far down do we go? And so, but right now, we have that $7.25 million value that we're looking at.
And I think in your packet, you know, we had that historical, you know, so you can kind of see where we've been, and obviously our ask that was reduced there as well. So again, will we decide that in December or November? December? Probably?
I think December is the latest we can.
It is, yeah, so. So again, we just want you to start thinking about that. Again, we typically will do that in March for 2 years, just to provide some consistency for our taxpayers and for us as a district. Again, as you've seen, it's the maximum amount that we can ask for, but typically, you know, that is what we would ask, you know, the county to certify.
So we'll look at it more closely and then have a recommendation for you and some justification for that recommendation, and then you can provide us some direction, thoughts that you're having. We'll show you what the balances are of the general fund. We'll have a better idea after our purchase. As you saw in the ESSER money, we're looking at about half of it, or if, we're able to close and finalize that deal on the property in Chubbuck, and, with the Allstate building. And then, the other half of it, we can draw from, as Carl said, other funds, general fund, as well as our, school plant facilities or the SIP. So we can make up the difference using those two sources. And then that'll give you a better idea and us too, of where we're sitting for this recommendation.
Okay, sounds good. Appreciate all you guys do. That's gotta be quite a process.
So this 72 million is just an estimate right now, Jonathan, on the chart?
This
So for which one again?
7.2 million?
Yeah,
7.25 on the supplemental levy.
yeah, on the supplement.
No, so that's what, for this fiscal year, that
Okay.
is what we reduced our.
All right.
We voted on that before
Yeah,
already.
okay,
So it's the ones, it's the taxes that you'll,
right.
yeah, correct, pay for this year.
So, yeah, that will be the tax revenue we receive from the county for the current
Current
fiscal
year.
year that we are in.
Yeah,
22, 23.
right.
Anybody else have any questions? Comments? Thank you. Okay, next, the board will review the board operating principles, the code of ethics, and the strategic goals.
So they're, just right there in your packet, as, Mrs. Judy and Mrs. Oliver, met with me last fall in anticipation of the election and asked about general responsibilities and duties. I shared these, and so you've had an opportunity to look at them, and then the former board members have seen them more than once, quite a number of times. So you'll have an opportunity to review those again before our next meeting, and any suggestions, thoughts, changes, modifications, whatever, we could address then, but,
And that doesn't have the, committee norms there? Is that also going to be reviewed, or just the operating principles, the goals?
These are
and
specifically for the board of trustees for the overall, not really.
Just, but not norms of the committees of the board, the board's role in committees? Not that?
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, that's a separate.
Okay. Okay, final, the board will review the 2023 ISBA proposed resolutions and bylaws amendments, and will provide direction for the 2022 ISBA annual convention at the time of this meeting. So hopefully we all had an opportunity to look through those.
yeah. There are 14 of them. Ms. Clark asked a question yesterday when I mentioned that we received an email from ISBA, and it just said, one of the districts, the sponsors will be presenting and visiting with the superintendent from Montville. He said, our board chair would be happy to present this at ISBA. So I said, go for it. And we'll have 3 new members there, and so you'll just be kind of new to the process, and I thought that may not be a bad idea for you, just to, watch one, and then we'll see where it goes for next time. But specifically, ours is number 6, and it's the personnel funding, use it or lose it. And we've talked just a tiny bit, we've brushed on it a couple times, and essentially what that is, the way the law is written in terms of class size or students-teacher ratio, we always end up in the neighborhood of 2/10 above what the state average is for our category. And so their flexibility, if you will, is 1 student from above the state average. So what skews our particular group a little bit, in my opinion, maybe more than a little bit, when we look and break this down, Blaine County is in our group, and Coeur d'Alene and Boise. And all of them have special significant levies or special charters, like in the case of Boise, And so they can tax without, you know, the way we do it typically,
They do have
because
that.
they're separate, one. And so that pulls they're able to get more funding, and then by acquiring more funding, they hire more teachers, which pulls that state average down in our category. And so as you look at those numbers, you can see the pattern exists, that districts like Bonneville, Pocatello, we get penalized year after year. And so this use it or lose it clause, I asked Carl to run some numbers for me. And we, with that loss of 1% each year in the monies that we receive for reimbursement, so we started at 9.5 of our FTE, and now we're down to, I think we're gonna be down to 2.5 this year, but we've lost about $300,000 each year in funding.
Yeah.
So a total in the next year, and Carl's projecting that we would lose another one, $2.9 million is what we have lost in funding because of this rule. And again, it's, we actually got the groups created. My first year as superintendent, that was what Mary Wagner and the board had worked on, because before the state average was calculated from, you know, the tiniest of, you know, one-room schoolhouse in Homedale, Idaho, to, and Garden, is it Garden?
Garden City?
Garden Valley. Garden Valley,
Yeah.
yeah, you know, they might have 1 or 2 teachers and 12 kids in the whole school, all the way up to, you know, Meridian, and they get penalized like us and Bonneville, because they'll be off a few. And it's not like 5 or 10 students. Again, we're talking 2/10 in our particular case oftentimes. And so, for us, we're just continuing to lose funding. They might be working on a new funding formula. We hope that they'll continue with enrollment-based rather than ADA, because that has benefited us, and that's how, you know, our general fund has been able to pick up some dollars that we had in reserve to do special projects like we had planned. And so, but if this is to continue, what I was saying about the grouping is, so we at least got them to subdivide that bigger group into 4 areas, so it's like large, medium, small, extra small, or whatever you wanna call it. But even with that, our category brings in, like I said, those other special levies or higher levies. And we just get caught every time. And so we're just proposing that as far as number 6. You can see on here too, some of the others, about 3 of them deal with facilities, and asking the state to look at using those extra dollars as one-time dollars and put into grants, or to put into facilities in other ways. And so I think that was a big one that you'll see, again, in my estimate, about 3 times through there. Public schools to collect impact fees, CUNA was all over that. I know closer to home, like in Bonneville, there was a developer coming in, planned for 3,000 homes, and, you know, that hits the taxpayers that are there currently. And so the impact fee would, you know, set a fee upon, to create more infrastructure, perhaps some go to schools. And so I think CUNA, Meridian, Bonneville, with that high growth that they're seeing out in the Hammond area, yeah, that's the reason for those impact fees. Transportation, contract flexibility, number 12, that looked like a specific request to me, but somehow they're generalizing it to the whole state. So you can take a look at that one. I don't know how you'll want to vote on that. But I think, by and large, all of these resolutions probably could, they do carry the do pass recommendation from the ISBA Governmental Affairs Group and the leadership team. And so you'll have an opportunity, is it next week we vote on how we're going to vote at ISBA?
We usually do that in the session and not vote.
Oh,
It's
is that
just
it?
direction.
Okay, so, yeah, I couldn't remember, I thought maybe we did it at a regular meeting. So, if you have strong feelings one way or another on these, we could talk about it now, if you've had a chance to read through them and have some questions. Oh, another one that was of interest, I think, kind of a new idea, was number 5 in terms of school plant facilities, raising those from a 10-year maximum to a 20. And this would allow some districts to, get money for their facilities, and rather than run a bond that might last 20 or 30 years, could we do it as a levy, and that would reduce the percentage of pass rate. So instead of 66.6% or 7, they might be able to do it at 50, 55, or 60. And so it essentially for a levy, the school plant facilities, they could reduce the percentage it would take to pass it. So, that's some creative thinking too. But, again, I think all in all, we just follow the ISBA lead for a do pass unless you have some heartburn about any of them.
Cool. So we don't have a discussion about that now?
You can.
We can? Okay, anybody have any
Yeah.
concerns about or anything you want to talk about? I think about that school plant facility levy. I think all the good things we've been able to do with that over the last, how many years, I don't know, but it's amazing what we've been able to accomplish, and that without having to go to the public and say, hey, we need to have a bond for the school or for that, for whatever. And
I think so too, Mr.
And,
Chairman.
I-
I think it's a way to have some money set aside for those larger projects that are kind of in process, in theory, this is what we'd like to do, and then when opportunities become available, then you're able to take advantage. Whether it's, Pokie High improvements, it was the alternative school, it was Alameda, now
Right.
potentially a CTE center. This has been very beneficial for our district.
And I don't think the public realizes that in large. Maybe they do, but I don't think they do.
Yeah.
I mean, I think about, before I was on the board, I didn't realize all the things that were happening with this. I think that's, and what a great thing it's been for our district anyway.
It really has.
Okay, no comments, no questions? Yeah, we'll move on to public comment. No written comment was received, so I hereby declare the session adjourned. Do we have a special meeting now?
Yes, that should be on there if it went to, we just
Okay.
adjourn this, convene, and special
Okay,
meeting.
I'll read the whole thing. I hereby declare the board work session adjourned and will convene a special meeting for action. The purpose of the special meeting for action will review a request for release from contract, and we'll turn the time over to Brenda Minor.
Friend mine? I thought you were going the other way.
No, I was waiting for the door to be closed.
No,
No, it's okay, this is.
special meeting,
this is
not
public
executive.
meeting.
Yeah, we're fine.
Told wrong, I get a little confused.
Brendan is open session, so.
Got it? All right. Thank you. I just wanted to touch base with you a little bit. You have in your packet that we have a part-time teacher who has decided that she would like to retire. She said that she just made that decision and just kind of decided that now's the time, once she got started, that maybe she should have made that a little sooner, but she's ready to retire, and she's a part-time teacher, one of our elementary schools, and so we can get that position opened, and we just wanted to bring that to your attention.
Okay, well, we have action on that, right?
And so she's just released from contract and without any negative, nothing negative for her.
Absolutely, yeah.
All righty, so I would entertain a motion to consider providing a request for release from a contract as presented.
I hereby move that the board approve the request for release from contract as presented.
Is there a second?
A second?
Is there any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed?
Aye.
See?
That was in favor, right?
Yes.
Oh,
Okay. We were too fast. Okay, then that motion passed. I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
I hereby move that we adjourn.
Is there a second?
I'll second
Any, all in favor?
it. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?